The metal door slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Zexthar walked slowly into the round chamber. His 4 legs made quiet clicking sounds on the polished floor. The 7 members of the Council of Stellar Security watched him from their raised seats. The room was cold and quiet. Zexthar felt old today. His purple shell had faded over his 300 years of military service. The many battles he had fought left marks on his body. Scars ran across his right arm where a human explosive had nearly taken it off. His left eye had been replaced with a mechanical one after a mining laser on Mars had burned through his face. "Commander Zexthar, you may begin your testimony," said Head Counselor Velzan. Her voice was flat and formal. Zexthar's breathing holes fluttered with stress. What he had to say would change everything for the galactic hegemony. "I wish to speak with words, not mind link," Zexthar said. This was not normal. Most testimonies use the telepathic interface to share memories directly. Counselor Prelmar leaned forward. "This is highly unusual, Commander. The interface would be more efficient." "What I have seen must be heard, not just felt as data," Zexthar insisted. "The emotional weight of my words is important." The council members looked at each other. Finally, Velzan nodded. "Very well. Begin your verbal testimony about the humans." Zexathar's 4 hands gripped the edge of the speaking platform. "It started at Colony Outpost Delta 9, on the planet the humans call Mars. We detected valuable mineral deposits and marked the planet for standard resource acquisition. Our scouts found a small mining operation led by a human named Frank Miller. Images appeared in the air above Zexthar. They showed a dusty red landscape with basic metal buildings. Humans in protective suits moved between structures, operating machinery. We sent the standard message ordering them to leave. As per protocol, we gave them 1 local day to evacuate. We expected the usual response. Most species understand when they face superior technology and numbers." Zexthar's breathing vents opened wider as his stress increased. Miller sent back a 1-word reply. "No." The council chamber remained silent. Zexthar continued. "We landed, a small force of 200 warriors to show our power. Standard intimidation tactics. The humans had 12 hours warning of our arrival. In that time, Miller and his team of 35 workers did something no other species has done. They prepared to fight." New images showed the mining colony transformed. Mining machines had been moved to create barriers. Laser drills were mounted on rotating platforms. Explosive charges normally used for breaking rocks were attached to remote devices. They evacuated the 11 humans not willing to fight. Then they turned their mining equipment into weapons. When our forces landed, they were ready. Zexthar touched a control, and a video began playing. It showed hegemony soldiers advancing across the Martian surface toward the colony. Suddenly, bright beams of light shot out from behind the barricades. 3 soldiers fell immediately. The others scattered for cover, but the mining lasers tracked them. "Mining lasers are not designed as weapons," Zexthar explained. "But their purpose is to cut through rock. They cut through our armor just as easily." The video continued. Small objects rolled toward the hegemony troops. They exploded, sending deadly shrapnel in all directions. "They held their position for 7 standard cycles," Zexthar said. 7 cycles against forces that outnumbered them 20-1. Counselor Temvok shifted uncomfortably. "But surely they were defeated in the end?" "Yes," Zexthar admitted. "But at terrible cost. Of our 200 warriors, only 63 survived. They killed 28 humans. The remaining 7 were captured." The images changed again, showing the ruined colony. Bodies of both species lay scattered on the red soil. "But what truly disturbed me was not their skill in battle," Zexthar said. "It was the final message Frank Miller sent to our commander." Zexathar's finger trembled as he pressed another button. A human voice filled the chamber. "You might take this rock, but you've just woken the nest. God help you all." The council members shifted uneasily. "I did not understand his words then," Zexathar said. "Now I do. The humans have a creature called a bee on their world. If you disturb their nest, they swarm out to attack. Each bee is small and weak, but together they can kill creatures many times their size. Zexithar brought up a new image. It showed Earthships launching from their home planet. 3 days after we took Mars, the human government issued a formal declaration of war. Every colony, every outpost began preparing. They did not beg for peace or offer compromise. They simply began organizing for war. The images showed more humans in uniform now. Military ships and weapons being prepared. Factories changing from civilian to military production. What makes them different is their unity in the face of threat, Zexithar explained. Other species have stronger warriors or better technology, but humans have a unique response to danger. They band together with incredible speed and determination. Zexithar showed recordings of human news broadcasts following the Mars incident. Humans of different colors, sizes, and regional origins all spoke with the same resolve about defending their species. Their ability to set aside internal conflicts when faced with an external threat is unlike anything we have observed in 2,000 years of expansion, Zexithar said. Within 1 month of the Mars incident, 97% of their industrial capacity had been redirected to military production. Counselor Drenvox raised a hand. Commander, surely their technology is still primitive compared to ours. How could they pose a real threat? Zexithar's mechanical eye glowed slightly brighter. That brings me to the second disturbing quality of humans, their adaptability. He showed images of human ships before and after contact with the hegemony. They learn at an astonishing rate. They captured some of our technology during the Mars battle. Within weeks, they had reverse-engineered elements of our shield systems and weapons. They do not innovate like we do, through careful steps of research. They make intuitive leaps, taking existing technology and finding new ways to use it. The final image showed a human child playing with a toy spaceship. Even their young are taught to think of space travel and warfare as natural. They call it play, but it trains them to imagine possibilities we would never consider. This is why Frank Miller could turn mining tools into weapons so quickly. Humans are always imagining how things could be used differently. Zexithar's voice became quieter. The Mars incident was just the beginning. What came next showed us what humans are truly capable of when provoked. The 7 council members stared at him in silence. None of them spoke, but Zexithar could see the growing concern in their postures. I tell you now, with all my experience of warfare, that we have never faced a species like humans before. And if we continue on our current path, I fear the galactic hegemony itself may not survive the encounter. The council room grew colder as Zexithar continued his story. 3 years had passed since the Mars incident. The hegemony had sent a full battle group to the human colony world called New Terra. Zexithar had been put in charge of intelligence operations for this mission. We deployed 23 warships, Zexithar said. His voice was steady, but his lower arms trembled slightly. Our forces were commanded by Fleet Admiral Krenvok, one of our most experienced officers. The humans had only 5 combat ships defending New Terra. Zexithar touched a control panel, and a hologram appeared. It showed the hegemony fleet in perfect formation, approaching a small blue-green planet. 5 tiny human ships faced them. We expected immediate surrender, Zexithar continued. No rational species would fight against such odds, but the human commander, Captain Lisa Howard, did not surrender. The hologram changed, showing the human ships breaking formation. They scattered in different directions. Howard employed what humans call guerrilla tactics. This concept was unknown to us. In all our military history, we fight in formations with clear lines of battle, but humans do not think this way. The council watched as the hologram showed one human ship diving toward a large asteroid field. 2 hegemony cruisers followed it. Suddenly, the human ship cut its engines, spun around, and fired directly at the pursuing ships before they could react. They used the environment as a weapon, Zexithar explained. They knew the asteroid fields better than we did. They knew where to hide, where our sensors would be blocked. The hologram showed another human ship disappearing into the atmosphere of a gas giant. When 3 hegemony ships followed, the human ship emerged behind them and attacked. They did not fight for victory, Zexithar said. They knew they could not win against our numbers. They fought to inflict maximum damage. They fought like they had nothing to lose. Counselor Temvak leaned forward. But surely our superior technology prevailed. Zexthar's mechanical eye dimmed. We lost 11 ships in that battle, 11 ships against their 5, and the worst was yet to come. The hologram changed again. It showed the human ship Defiance under attack from 3 hegemony cruisers. The ship was clearly damaged with fires visible along its hull. Captain Howard's ship had taken critical damage to its engine section, Zexthar said. By all logic, she should have surrendered or attempted to escape. Instead, she did something no hegemony commander would ever consider. The Council watched as the damaged human ship stopped running. It turned and moved directly toward the 3 pursuing hegemony cruisers. The hegemony ships slowed, moving into formation to capture the apparently surrendering vessel. We intercepted their communications during this moment, Zexthar said. He pressed another button. A human female voice filled the chamber. All hands, this is Captain Howard. Prepare for final maneuver. Remember, folks, we're not just fighting for New Terra. We're showing these aliens that humanity doesn't kneel. Another voice responded. Engine core set to overload, Captain. It's been an honor. Howard's voice again. The honor's mine. For Earth. Multiple voices shouted back, for Earth. The hologram showed what happened next. Just as the 3 hegemony cruisers moved into close range, the human ship exploded with incredible force. All 4 ships were destroyed instantly. They deliberately overloaded their reactor core, Zexthar said quietly. They sacrificed themselves to destroy our ships. The council chamber was silent. Zexthar let the silence stretch before continuing. The battle for New Terra lasted 12 days. We eventually took the planet, but at a cost of 17 ships. We lost over 4,000 soldiers. The humans lost all 5 ships and approximately 2,000 people. Counselor Prelmar's voice was tinged with disbelief. They chose death over surrender? Yes, Zexthar said. And this leads me to the most disturbing observation from the New Terra campaign. After this battle, our military psychologists documented something unprecedented among our troops. He touched the control panel again. Medical reports appeared, showing brain scans of hegemony soldiers. Our troops developed a new emotional response when facing humans. We had no word for it in our language. The humans call it fear. Not tactical caution, not strategic concern. This was a primal, instinctive dread of engaging human forces. Zexthar brought up video recordings of hegemony soldiers being interviewed after the battle. One soldier spoke. They don't fight like proper enemies. They hide, they trick, they appear from nowhere. And their eyes, when you see a human up close, their eyes look wrong, like they can see through you. Another soldier. When we captured 3 humans from their ground forces, they should have been terrified. They were surrounded, injured, clearly defeated, but they laughed at us. One of them told me, "You think this is over? You have no idea what's coming." I couldn't sleep for days after that. Zexthar closed the recordings. After New Terra, volunteers for human combat missions decreased by 60%. We had to rotate troops more frequently. Some refused to engage entirely, preferring court-martial to facing humans again. Counselor Drenvok shifted uncomfortably. Surely our troops could be conditioned to overcome this fear. We tried, Zexthar admitted. But conditioning works against known threats. Humans are unpredictable. Their tactics change constantly. Our soldiers would be prepared for one approach, then the humans would do something completely different. Zexthar brought up another hologram. This time it showed ground combat on New Terra. Hegemony troops moved in perfect formation through a forest area. Suddenly the ground beneath them exploded. Trees fell, crushing soldiers. Human fighters appeared from underground tunnels, firing weapons from all directions. They had spent months preparing the battlefield. Zexthar explained. They knew we were coming. They studied our tactics from the Mars incident. They laid traps, created false targets, and used the environment against us. The hologram showed more scenes from the ground battle. humans using simple rope traps to snare hegemony soldiers, primitive projectile weapons that didn't register on hegemony sensors until it was too late, human soldiers covered in mud and plant matter to mask their heat signatures. Their adaptability makes them incredibly dangerous, Zexthar said. After each encounter, they learn, they improve, they find new ways to fight us. Counselor Velzan spoke for the first time since the testimony began. Commander, you speak of the humans as if they are a unified force. Do they not have divisions? Different nations, political factions, can we not exploit these differences? Zexithar nodded. A good question, Counselor. Yes, humans are divided. They have nearly 200 political entities they call nations. Before our arrival, they fought each other constantly over resources, ideology, religion, and territory. He displayed a map of Earth showing the different human nations. We attempted to exploit these divisions. We offered technology and resources to some nations in exchange for helping us against others. But when faced with an external threat, humans have a remarkable ability to set aside their differences. Zexthar showed recordings of human leaders from different nations speaking with one voice against the hegemony. They formed a united defense force combining soldiers from all their major powers. Captain Howard herself was from a nation called the United States, but her crew came from 12 different countries. They may fight each other, but they fight together against anyone who threatens their species as a whole. Zexthar touched his scarred face. The New Terra campaign taught us that humans do not think about warfare the way we do. For us, war is an extension of policy. For humans, war is existential. They fight not just for resources or territory, but for their very identity as a species. The council members looked at each other with growing concern. What had started as a simple resource acquisition mission had turned into something much more dangerous. And this, Zexthar said, was still just the beginning of our troubles with humans. What came next would change how the hegemony thinks about warfare forever. Zexthar paused to drink from a small container of nutrient fluid. His breathing had become more labored as he recalled the painful memories of human warfare. The council members waited in silence, their normal impatience gone. What they were hearing changed everything they thought they knew about warfare. After the New Terra campaign, Zexthar continued, the High Command assigned me to lead a special intelligence division. Our task was to understand human military thinking. We needed to know how they fought, why they fought, and most importantly, how to defeat them. Zexithar touched the control panel, bringing up images of captured human data cores, books, and historical records. We studied everything we could find about human military history. What we discovered was deeply troubling. Unlike every spacefaring species we've ever encountered, humans never evolved beyond their predatory origins. He showed images of early human conflicts, primitive humans with spears, later with metal weapons, and then with increasingly deadly technology. Most species fight wars over territory and resources. These are logical reasons for conflict. But humans fight wars over things we can barely comprehend: ideology, religion, and abstract concepts like freedom and justice. Counselor Prelmar's head tilted in confusion. I do not understand. How can one fight over an abstract concept? That is exactly what makes humans so dangerous, Zexithar replied. They attach emotional value to ideas. They will die for these ideas. They will kill for these ideas. This makes their behavior unpredictable by our standards. Zexthar brought up footage from the Battle of Europa Station. The station orbited Jupiter, a gas giant in the human solar system. The video showed a narrow maintenance tunnel, barely wide enough for one person to walk through. During our attack on Europa Station, a human officer named Lieutenant Alan Garcia was in charge of a small unit of 23 soldiers. The station was already lost. Most humans were evacuating. Garcia received orders to hold a maintenance tunnel on the outer ring. The footage showed Garcia speaking to his soldiers. They were checking weapons and setting up defensive positions in the narrow space. This tunnel had no strategic value, Zexithar explained. It wasn't connected to any critical systems. It wasn't near the command center. By all logical analysis, Defending it was pointless. Zexthar played the audio from Garcia's briefing to his troops. Garcia's voice was calm. Listen up. The civilians need 3 more hours to reach the escape ships. Our job is to make sure they get that time. This tunnel is the fastest way for the aliens to flank the main evacuation route. We hold here no matter what. Every minute we give those people is another 20 civilians who get out alive. A female soldier asked, Sir, what's the extraction plan for us? There was a pause before Garcia answered. There isn't one, Corporal Chen. We hold until everyone's out or until we can't hold anymore. I know what I'm asking. Anyone who wants to join the evacuation has my permission. No one moved. One by one, the soldiers checked their weapons again. For the people, Garcia said simply. For the people. His soldiers responded. Zexthar stopped the recording. Garcia and his 23 soldiers held that meaningless tunnel for 39 hours. They inflicted casualties at an 8-1 ratio before being overrun. None of them attempted to escape. The council watched in silence as Zexthar showed the battle footage. The humans had set up clever defensive positions, using the narrow space to their advantage. When their ammunition ran low, they fought with improvised weapons. When they were wounded, they continued fighting. The most disturbing part, Zexthar said, was the end. As the last defenders fell, they were still advancing toward our forces, not retreating. The final frames of the video showed a badly wounded Garcia charging toward hegemony soldiers with nothing but a metal pipe in his hands. We recovered their battle recordings, Zexthar said. Garcia's final words to his troops were, We've done our job. The civilians are away. Now make these bastards pay for every step. Counselor Temvak's voice was quiet. They sacrificed themselves for others of their kind? Yes, Zexthar said, and this brings me to one of the most important differences between human warfare and our own, how they define victory. He brought up a comparison chart showing hegemony battle doctrine next to human approaches. For most species, preservation of fighting capability is paramount. We withdraw when losses exceed certain thresholds. We preserve our forces to fight another day. This is logical. He pointed to the human side of the chart. For humans, the objective itself becomes sacred. They will sacrifice everything to achieve it, even when such sacrifice seems to have no rational benefit. Zexthar showed footage from another battle, this time on one of Earth's moons. A human base was under attack by superior hegemony forces. The humans were clearly losing, with most of their defenses already destroyed. This was Moon Base Alpha, Zexthar explained. We intercepted communications from their commander, Colonel William Patel. Patel's voice filled the chamber. All units, this is Colonel Patel. Defense perimeter has fallen. Initiate Protocol Omega. I repeat, initiate Protocol Omega. If we can't hold this ground, we make sure there's nothing left to hold. Scorched Earth people, it's in our blood. We didn't understand what Protocol Omega meant, Zexthar said. Not until it was too late. The footage showed the remaining humans setting explosives throughout the base. As hegemony forces breached the final defenses, the entire base exploded, taking hundreds of hegemony soldiers with it. They destroyed their own base rather than let us capture it, Zexthar said. They sacrificed the very thing they were defending to deny it to us. Counselor Drenvox leaned forward. But this is irrational. Why defend something only to destroy it? That is the key to understanding human warfare, Zexthar replied. They fight not just for the physical object or territory, but for what it represents. The moon base itself wasn't important. Denying it to us was important. Making us pay a high price was important. Zexthar brought up more examples from human history. Throughout their own history, humans have practiced what they call scorched earth tactics. When forced to retreat, they destroy everything useful to the enemy: food, shelter, resources. They leave nothing behind. Images showed burned fields, destroyed bridges, poisoned wells. This approach violates everything we understand about logical warfare, Zexthar said. But for humans, defeat is worse than destruction. They would rather see something destroyed than in enemy hands. Counselor Velzan spoke again. Commander, you paint a disturbing picture of human military thinking. But surely their technological limitations mean they cannot pose a serious threat to the hegemony as a whole? Zexthar's mechanical eye glowed brighter. That brings me to perhaps the most dangerous aspect of human warfare: their rate of adaptation. He showed a timeline of human technology development over the past 200 years. Most species take centuries to make significant technological leaps. Humans do it in decades. When we first encountered them, their weapons were primitive compared to ours. But with each battle, they learned. They captured our technology. They studied it. They improved upon it. The timeline showed how quickly humans had incorporated hegemony technology into their own weapons and ships. In just 3 years of conflict, they developed shields that could withstand our standard weapons. They created targeting systems that could penetrate our cloaking devices. Their rate of innovation under pressure is unlike anything we have seen before. Zexthar brought up one final piece of data from his intelligence research. We found evidence of a human military doctrine called asymmetric warfare. It is the idea that a weaker force can defeat a stronger one by exploiting unexpected vulnerabilities. Humans don't try to match our strength. They look for our weaknesses. He showed a simple diagram of a hegemony cruiser. Certain points were marked in red. Human special forces studied our ship designs. They identified 23 critical vulnerabilities that we had never considered significant. Things like external sensor arrays, cooling vents, communication nodes. Not major systems, but small crucial points that, if targeted precisely, could disable an entire vessel. The council members shifted uneasily as they recognized their own ship designs in the diagrams. Humans think differently about warfare than we do, Zexthar concluded this part of his testimony. They see patterns we miss. They find creative solutions we would never consider. And most dangerous of all, they are willing to pay prices we consider unacceptable. Counselor Temvak's voice was barely audible. How can we fight an enemy that thinks this way? Zexthar's 4 hands clenched into fists. That is precisely the question that haunted me as I continued to study them. And the answer I found was even more disturbing than the question. The council chamber had grown very quiet. None of the 7 members interrupted Zexthar now. Their body postures showed growing concern. The veteran commander took another drink before continuing his testimony. As disturbing as human physical combat abilities are, Zexthar said, there is something even more dangerous about them: their understanding of psychological warfare. He brought up a new set of images. These showed hegemony outposts that had been attacked by humans. Each one had the same marking painted on a wall, a simple drawing of a human skull. Humans understand something fundamental that we had never considered, Zexthar explained. Fear is a weapon more potent than any particle cannon or fusion torpedo. He zoomed in on one of the skull images. This symbol represents death in human culture. It is a picture of their own head bones without flesh. They began marking our outposts with it after attacks. Counselor Prelmar leaned forward. A simple drawing? How is this a weapon? Because it affected our troops psychologically, Zexthar replied. After seeing this symbol at multiple attack sites, our soldiers began to fear it. When they found it painted on a wall, they knew humans had been there and might still be nearby. He showed footage of hegemony troops discovering the symbol in an outpost. The soldiers immediately became agitated, checking their weapons more frequently, jumping at small noises. Major Samantha Young commanded a special operations unit during the counter-offensive in the Jovian Moons, Zexthar continued. Her team would infiltrate our outposts, sometimes without attacking, just to leave this mark. He brought up intelligence reports about Young's unit. Young's team never numbered more than 50 operatives, yet our own intelligence reports estimated they were facing hundreds, possibly thousands of specialized human killers. The reports showed increasingly panicked assessments from hegemony commanders about the human special forces threat. The humans understood that perception creates its own reality in warfare, Zexthar said. They didn't need a large force. They just needed us to believe they had a large force. He brought up more examples of human psychological tactics. Sound recordings played of human laughter and whispers that had been broadcast through captured hegemony communication systems. The alien sounds were deeply unsettling even to the council members. Humans studied our species carefully, Zexthar explained. They learned that we have an instinctive fear of isolation. Our species evolved as herd creatures. Being alone causes us stress, so they exploited this. He showed footage from the Hegemony, flagship Supreme Dominance. The massive ship had been attacked by a small human force led by Lieutenant Benjamin Wright. Wright and 18 human Marines managed to board our flagship using captured environmental suits, Zexithar said. They modified these suits with human death imagery, skulls, bones, and symbols from their various warrior cultures. The footage showed the humans moving through the ship's corridors. Their modified suits looked like walking nightmares to Hegemony eyes. The first thing Wright's team did was cut internal communications, Zexithar continued. Then they used our own announcement, systems to broadcast human sounds throughout the ship, laughter, whispers, strange music. The council watched as the footage showed Hegemony crew members becoming increasingly panicked. Some barricaded themselves in rooms. Others fired weapons at shadows. By the time Wright's team reached the bridge, half the crew had locked themselves away, Zexithar said. The humans took control of a vessel crewed by over 700 of our finest warriors. They did it with just 19 soldiers. The final footage showed the bridge crew surrendering to the humans without a fight.
This is what makes humans truly dangerous, Zexthar said quietly. They don't just defeat our bodies. They defeat our minds. He brought up more examples of human psychological warfare. Fake distress calls that lured Hegemony ships into traps.
Captured Hegemony codes used to send false orders. Drone ships made to look damaged that exploded when Hegemony vessels approached to capture them. They used deception constantly, Zexthar explained. In our culture, direct confrontation is valued. We see deception as dishonorable. Humans have no such cultural limitation. They use every advantage, honorable or not. Counselor Tembak's voice was strained. Is there no line they will not cross? No tactic too dishonorable? Zexthar considered this. They do have limits, but not the ones we understand. They have rules for treating prisoners well. They avoid targeting civilian populations when possible, but in combat itself they use every advantage. He showed recordings of human military training, soldiers practicing ambushes, learning to use the environment for concealment, studying enemy psychology. They trained specifically to exploit weaknesses, Zexthar said. Not just physical weaknesses, but mental and emotional ones too. The council watched footage of human soldiers practicing shooting from hidden positions, setting traps, and moving silently through different environments. Most disturbing of all, Zexithar continued, is how humans pass on their knowledge of warfare. They document everything. They learn from each battle, each engagement. They write detailed analyses of what worked and what didn't. He brought up images of human military academies, training centers, and libraries filled with books on warfare. They have been studying war for their entire history, Zexithar said. They have texts thousands of years old that are still studied by their military leaders today. They learn from the past in a way we never have. Counselor Drenvox shifted uneasily. Commander, you speak as if humans enjoy warfare. Zexthar shook his head. No, that is the final paradox of humans. They hate war. Their literature, their art, their philosophy, all speak of war as a terrible thing. Yet they are better at it than any species we have encountered. He brought up images of human memorials to fallen soldiers, hospitals treating the wounded, families mourning their dead. They understand the cost of war more deeply than we do, Zexthar said. Perhaps that is why they fight so fiercely. They know what they are sacrificing, and they do it anyway. The council chamber was silent as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, Counselor Velzan spoke. Commander, you have painted a disturbing picture of human warfare capabilities, but I must ask, have we not faced determined enemies before? Have we not always prevailed through superior numbers and technology? Zexithar's mechanical eye dimmed. What you say was true until we met humans. But there is one more aspect of human warfare that I have not yet addressed, perhaps the most dangerous of all. He touched the control panel again. This time, the hologram showed human ships gathered around Jupiter, the largest gas giant in their solar system. After 3 years of conflict, we were still advancing, though more slowly than expected. We had superior numbers and resources. Logic dictated that humans would eventually be defeated. But then our intelligence division discovered Project Hades. The hologram zoomed in to show strange devices being placed in Jupiter's upper atmosphere by human ships. Project Hades was developed by 2 humans, General Catherine Reeves and Dr. Peter Nash. It was a contingency plan for use if humanity faced extinction. Zexithar's voice became very quiet. They found a way to use Jupiter's own composition against us. By placing specially designed fusion devices at key points in the planet's atmosphere, they could trigger a chain reaction. The gas giant would not become a star, but it would release an enormous burst of energy and radiation. The simulation. Zexthar stood before the Council of Stellar Security. His testimony had lasted for hours. The once proud commander now looked tired. His breathing was labored. The scars on his body seemed more prominent under the harsh lights of the council chamber. "Members of the council," he said, his voice suddenly quiet. "I stand before you not as a military commander, but as someone who has glimpsed extinction. I am here to deliver a warning that will determine the future of our entire civilization." The 7 council members leaned forward. This was no longer a routine military briefing. This was something far more serious. "Based on everything I have shared about human warfare capabilities," Zexithar continued, "I make the following formal recommendation. The galactic hegemony must cease all hostilities with humans immediately. We must withdraw from human-claimed systems. We must establish a buffer zone under neutral observation, and we must pursue diplomatic solutions at any cost." Councillor Drenvox stood up in shock. "Withdraw? This is unprecedented. The hegemony has never retreated from an expansion plan in its 2,000-year history, and we have never faced a species like humans before," Zexthar replied firmly. "If we continue this conflict, I believe the hegemony itself may not survive." "Counselor," Temvak shook his head. "Surely you exaggerate, Commander. Humans are confined to a single solar system. They have limited resources. Their technology is still primitive compared to ours." "With respect, Counselor," Zexthar said, "you are making the same mistake our early commanders made. You are judging humans by their current capabilities, not by their potential." He brought up a timeline showing human technological development over the past century. "Look at this progression," Zexithar said. 100 years ago, humans could barely fly in their own atmosphere. Now they have faster-than-light travel. Their rate of advancement under pressure is exponential, not linear. He showed more data, charts comparing human innovation rates before and after contact with the hegemony. "Since our first encounter, their weapons technology has advanced 300 years beyond where it should be," Zexithar explained. "They are integrating our captured technology with their own unique approaches. The results are concerning." The hologram showed a new type of human ship. It was smaller than hegemony vessels, but packed with weapon systems. "This is their newest destroyer class," Zexthar said. "It uses a hybrid propulsion system based partly on our technology, but modified in ways our engineers don't fully understand. It can accelerate and change direction faster than our targeting systems can track." He showed footage of the new ships in battle. They moved like living things, darting and weaving through hegemony formations, striking and withdrawing before the larger ships could respond. "With each engagement they learn," Zexithar said. "They adapt. They improve. If this conflict continues for another 5 years, I believe they will achieve technological parity with us. In 10 years, they may surpass us." Councillor Prelmar's voice was skeptical. "Even if what you say is true, Commander, the hegemony still has vastly greater resources. We have hundreds of worlds. Humans have only one homeworld and a few colonies. That brings me to my final point," Zexithar said. "Humans do not think about resources the way we do." He brought up images of Earth's history, humans fighting vastly superior forces and somehow prevailing. Throughout their history, humans have won conflicts where they were outnumbered and outgunned, Zexthar explained. They use strategy, deception, and sheer determination to overcome material disadvantages. He showed videos of human special forces training, small teams practicing to take down much larger opponents. They have a concept called force multiplication, Zexthar said. It means using tactics, technology, and terrain to make a small force as effective as a much larger one. They are masters of this approach. The youngest council member, Renzal, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Commander Zexthar, you have served the hegemony with distinction for 3 centuries. Your record is impeccable. Yet you stand before us advocating retreat. This is difficult to accept. Zexthar turned to face the young counselor directly. I understand, counselor. 5 years ago I would have felt the same. But I have seen what humans can do. I have fought them, I have studied them, and I have come to a conclusion that I cannot ignore no matter how unpleasant. This is a war we cannot win. The statement hung in the air. No hegemony commander had ever made such an admission before. Even if we eventually defeated humans through sheer numbers, Zexthar continued, the cost would be catastrophic. Millions of our warriors would die. Dozens of our worlds would be vulnerable to other threats while our forces were committed to Earth. And humans would ensure that whatever remained of their civilization would continue to fight us forever. He showed footage of human resistance, fighters on occupied worlds, still attacking hegemony forces years after formal conquest. They never surrender, not truly, Zexthar said. Even when they appear to submit, they continue to resist. They sabotage our equipment. They gather intelligence. They wait for opportunities to strike. The footage showed human children being taught about their history, about freedom, about resistance against occupiers. They pass these values to each new generation, Zexthar explained. The longer we fight them, the more they unite against us. The children born during this war will grow up hating the hegemony with every fiber of their being. Counselor Velzan, who had been thoughtful throughout the testimony, finally asked the key question. What alternative do you propose, Commander? If we withdraw, what then? Peace, Zexthar said simply. Not just a cessation of hostilities, but true peace. He brought up images of human cultural achievements, art, music, literature, scientific discoveries. Humans are not just warriors, Zexthar said. They are creators, explorers, thinkers. When not fighting for survival, they build rather than destroy. Their potential as allies rather than enemies is considerable. He showed projections of possible technological exchanges, trade routes, and cultural interactions between humans and the hegemony. Our initial surveys showed Earth has rare resources, Zexthar said. We thought to take them by force, as we have always done. But humans would trade for them. They would exchange knowledge, technology, art. Both our civilizations could benefit. The council members looked at each other, considering these unprecedented ideas. There is another factor to consider, Zexthar added quietly. In my study of humans, I discovered something troubling. They are not the only predatory species in the galaxy. He brought up long-range scans of regions beyond hegemony space. Our deep space probes have detected evidence of other aggressive expansionist empires, Zexthar said. Some may be more powerful than the hegemony. If we exhaust ourselves fighting humans, we may be vulnerable when these other threats eventually reach our borders. The scans showed massive energy signatures and artificial structures far larger than anything the hegemony had built. Humans could be valuable allies against these future threats, Zexthar suggested. Their unique approach to warfare, their adaptability, their determination, these qualities that make them dangerous enemies would make them powerful friends. The council chamber was silent as the members absorbed this final argument. Counselor, Velzan looked at each of her colleagues before speaking. Commander Zexthar, you have given us much to consider, she said formally. The council will deliberate on your testimony and recommendations. Zexthar bowed slightly, but did not leave the platform. With respect, Counselor, this matter requires immediate action. Our forces are preparing for a major offensive against Earth itself. If that attack proceeds, any chance for peace may be lost forever. Velzan looked surprised. You suggest we decide now? Without proper analysis and consultation? Yes, Zexthar said firmly. Every day we delay, more die on both sides. Every engagement makes humans more determined and more capable. I have presented all the evidence I have gathered over 3 years of studying them. Now you must decide. The 7 council members looked at each other. This was not how decisions were typically made in the hegemony. Important matters were studied for months, sometimes years. But Zexathar's urgency was compelling. Very well, Velzan said. The council will vote. Each member pressed a button. On their console, the results appeared on a large display for all to see. 7 lights glowed green. Unanimous, Velzan announced, sounding slightly surprised. The council accepts Commander Zexathar's recommendation. All hostilities against humans will cease immediately. Our forces will withdraw from human-claimed systems. Diplomatic channels will be opened. Zexathar's breathing vents relaxed for the first time since his testimony began. Thank you, counselors. This decision may have saved our civilization. As he turned to leave, the youngest counselor, Renzal, asked one final question. Commander, you have convinced us that humans are dangerous adversaries, but can they truly be trusted as allies? Their violent nature, their unpredictability, these qualities concern me. Zexathar considered the question carefully. Humans have a saying, counselor. Better a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. They understand violence better than we do, and that makes them dangerous. But it also means they value peace more deeply.